Watch out. Part D. I forgot what that was. I had to check. Yeah, Part D, PS1 Collection. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 20 games. Ooh, so I'll try not to make this too long. But the next one, E, is only 5 games, so that might be a bit shorter, which made me think there's a few coming up that are only literally 2 or 3 games. So I'm still yet to decide whether they're going to constitute their own video or not. But I'm leaning towards they are going to be their own video, so it'll be like a video of just a couple of games. But that's purely like a you know like a sort of an OCD thing. Keep them separate. So yeah, D's nice little selection here. Does sort of tail off near the end, but there's a good few games in this little collection. A few series. I'll just crack on. The first is 2 games in the series. I'll get them out at the same time. Dark Souls and Dark Souls 3. Probably 2 of my favourite 2D fighters on the PS1. When it comes to how they compare to, especially versions on other systems, especially the Saturn, I don't really know. I think this one only appeared on Power territories, isn't it, or Western, isn't it, on Saturn? I don't know. I know this one definitely didn't, but yeah, I think of the 2, this one's my favourite. There's more characters, there's more game modes. It feels a bit faster for me, even though I think there are a few sort of frames of animation missing. Definitely, the backgrounds on this one are more static, less animated. The actual backgrounds in this one are more animated, just by definition. I think there's only 10 characters and sort of 2 game modes. There's got a versus and an arcade mode on this, but I think the actual characters are slightly neater drawn. I don't know. I'd have to actually sit and just sort of. I've never actually sat down and compared them. Like an obsessive lunatic would. I've been tempted though. Yeah, so this one's my favourite. They're both really good games. 2D fighters. Much prefer 2D fighters to the 3D polygon fighters. Just purely, this one's really hard. I find this one's really hard. This one gave me a fighting chance. Sort of the first few goes on this one, you just get battered by the first character. It's sort of difficult to get beyond the first character, and it doesn't really give you an opportunity to learn the moves. There's only a few moves in the if you don't know the moves, and I don't know the moves. Essentially, they're Street Fighter moves. Same sort of inputs. I'm not an expert. They're like the sort of quarter turn moves, or sort of rotational. Is that what they're called? Essentially, it's Street Fighter but with vampires. So this one's tough. This one gives you a better fighting chances. I think this one's slightly more creative and slightly more varied. I think, but they're both pretty wacky. They've both got some properly wacky special moves and some nicely designed characters as well. Sort of a nice bit of variation. I really don't like the cover on this one though. The cover is a lot better on this one, don't you think? Yeah. This one looks sort of slightly. Fuck, Jesus! I've got a little pile right here, and I thought I'd nearly knock one off. Yeah, it doesn't seem really relevant to the representation of the content. But anyway, Darkstalkers, highly recommend both of those, even though my personal preference is for number 3. This next one, bit of a weird one. This is called the Staga. It's I think this is an example of the sort of PS1 with sort of people who make PS1 games having ideas above their station in that their ideas the PS1 isn't actually able to carry off. It's essentially an arena fighter. It's a one-on-one fighter, but it takes place in an arena. You can run around in the arena, and throw projectiles at your opponent. And it's how many? Yeah, it's only 1 or 2 players. It's probably better than 2-player. Again, I've never played this in 2-player, but it's a bit lackluster. It's a polygonal fighter with some sort of vaguely, sort of quite sort of basically designed characters. A bit sort of run-of-the-mill characters, but the hook being that it's an arena fighter, and you're not just stuck on the same plane. You can run around and you can hide behind objects and stuff. But it's relatively difficult to hold of. It's probably, I don't know. I mean, if you can, they don't pop up that often. But I got mine from Gumtree of all places. Yeah, it's it's okay. I'll say it's okay. I won't go beyond that. One of the very first PS1 games I ever got with my system. I got the system back in whatever, I don't know. I've got a relatively early PS1, so I'm guessing it's relatively early. Got it with Tomb Raider, the first Tomb Raider, Star Gladiator, and this Destruction Derby 2. I love this game. It's obviously relatively basic, but it's just really good fun. Really good fun. Much prefer it to the first game, which I haven't got. The first game feels a bit sort of basic and rough around the edges, and this improves on the formula. But obviously, I mean, when it comes to sort of car physics, it's very arcadey, obviously, isn't it? But it's a lot of fun. I can't say I've never won an arena match. They just feel impossible. I don't really know how to hit and not get hit. I've never worked it out, but the actual races are really good. But I don't think I've ever completed it, especially not the campaign. But this is another cover I like actually. I think it's really dynamic and it fills the space. It sits nicely on the cover, and it's really bold. A double case, but for some reason it's only 1 disc. But Destruction Derby 2, really enjoy it. Probably one of my favourite actual races because I find things like Gran Turismo tend to take themselves a bit too seriously. Coming up, Devil Dice. Annoyingly, it's got a bit of sun bleaching on there. You don't often see. It's actually dawned on me. You don't often see PS1 games with sun bleaching, and actually it's that size, isn't it? There as well. And weirdly, on the inside, the manual as well. How do you do that? It's essentially, I suppose you could say. No, I was going to compare it to Bomberman, but it's not because Bomberman's exclusively a party game, isn't it? Because you can play this on your own. Essentially, you're like this little dude, this little devil, who runs around. There's like a grid with dice on it, just sort of randomly scattered dice on the grid. You have to run around on top of the dice, and every time you go from one, if you're on one dice and there's a gap next to it, that dice will rotate. It's like rolling logs. Does that make sense? I don't think so. And what you have to do, you have to match the number on the top of the dice to. You have to match it to like another dice with a corresponding number next to it. So, which makes it really difficult. So what it is, you're running around, and say, for instance, the easiest one to get is 2s, because you have to match two dice with 2 on the top. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. The top number of the dice has to correspond with the amount of die in its, So it never really dawned on me how difficult this is to explain. Essentially what you have to do is get rid of the dice. So you have to create combos. So you roll around, you can move the dice by walking over them, and they rotate as you walk. and they move into sort of empty spaces, because not all of the spaces on this grid are occupied by dice. So as you move, they roll over, and it obviously changes the number on the top of the dice. And the number on the top of the dice has to correspond to the same the same number of the dice next to it. If that number corresponds to the amount of dice in the chain, say two, if you get 2 dice both with 2 on the top, those 2 dice will disappear. Got it. Brilliant. Which makes it really difficult. So there's a little, I don't think you can see actually, there's always like a little dice up in the corner. Actually, no, where is it? No, you're not going to see that. See, there's the grid. There's the grid there. There's always a little dice up in the corner which tells you the surrounding numbers, because it's quite difficult to see, and you have to. It's difficult because you have to remember what dice are on what face when you move, so that you can match up the sort of the numbers on top and create chains. But if you can create a chain, especially the easiest one is 2, obviously, if you can create a chain, they disappear. And if you can roll up 2 other dice on top of the disappearing dice that also have 2 corresponding number of the dice disappearing, they will disappear as well, creating a chain. It's not as complicated as it sounds, but I'm just making it more complicated than it actually is. But it is difficult because you have to. I think it just takes getting used to, sort of remembering sort of the faces on the dice and where they are in correspondence to the number on the top. So I'm trying to get another version of this, a cheat version, or at least like a sleeve, so I can swap that out, because it bugs me. Diablo, Dungeon Crawler, probably better on PC. Still a good game though. You can have 2 players, but it's like I said, it's probably more suited to PCs. It's another tough one. I've not played a lot of it, to be honest, but I've played enough to be able to have an opinion of it. But I did find it difficult, and I'm guessing the PC version is probably better. I've not had that one a lot. I've only had that about a year or so. Another game I haven't played a lot of is Digimon World. Probably because it's Digimon. Every so often I go through a period of thinking I'm too old to play these sorts of games. But they're all RPGs when they come down to it, aren't they? And I play lots of those. But monster catching RPG. It's the visuals. No, they're not actually. Yes, they are. They're not. They are. Sort of polygon based. Sort of the actual visual, the visual appearance of the second game, which is called 2003, Digimon World 2003, appeals to me more because it reminds me of Breath of Fire 3. But this one is purely based on how it looks. Again, I've not played a lot of it, but it's like it's a monster catching RPG. Next 2 series, Dino Crisis, Dino Crisis 2. What's your preference? This one, sorry, that one. Everyone knows it's more Resident Evil. This one, there's more gunplay in it. What do you prefer? This one's very close to Resident Evil. This one's a bit more, something with gunplay in it. They're both really good. I'm not going to waste your time anymore because I think everybody knows Dino Crisis, don't they? Yeah. And not bad, Nick. No cracks on these cases. Yeah. I'm not going to say too much more about those. Right. I'm just conscious of the amount of time this is taking. Right. Next 3. Discworld, Discworld 2, Discworld Noir. Weirdly, all of these 3 I got in charity shops, and I've got a rough copy of Discworld 2 that came from a charity shop, and I did have 2 spares of Discworld. But they got all from charity shops. Weird. Don't know why that is, but that's just how it's worked out. Obviously, point and click, like Broken Sword. and yeah, will appeal to fans of. Sorry, I think the sun's just about to come out. Will appeal to fans of Terry Pratchett, and when I was a kid, I was a fan of Terry Pratchett. I read the first few books and enjoyed them. Um, I find I've not played a lot of noir. I find the puzzles in 1 and 2 tough because they're slightly illogical. I mean, I like Broken Sword because there's a definite logic. Once you've completed the puzzle, you can see the trail of logic and you can apply logic to them. But I think with Discworld, it's slightly more collect collect items and use them in sort of random ways. You know, it's a bit more of that, which makes them difficult. And I mean, a lot of point and click games fall into that trap, but that's not to say they're not. You know, they're not really good. Not without. It just takes a lot of perseverance and sort of trial and error. Hang on, I just seen a. No, I thought I'd seen a crack. It's just trial and error and learning what goes where, because they seem sort of slightly sort of random items in random places to get through the to get through the to get through the game, but still good. And the artwork is slightly pixely, but it's definitely Terry Pratchett. And I think it's Eric Idle, isn't it? Eric Idle does Rincewind. I was going to say Rick Mail, but he's Hogs of War, isn't he? Doom. Yeah, I like this purely because it's basic and it sort of cuts corners. You don't have to. It does your aiming for you. It's just a point in the general direction and it'll aim for you. And I've been playing a lot of this recently, and you know, it never fails to sort of deliver a nice sort of buzz. Of murdering pixelated monsters. Although, like with most sort of this sort of generation FPSs, I often find myself being shot and not knowing where I'm being shot from, and then you turn around and you can't work it out, and then you realise you're being shot by this tiny little pixel up in the corner, and you ended up being shot by a little pixel. But yeah, it's Doom, innit? It's great. Just sort of straight up action, really good fun. Can I say much more than that? Not really. Probably the worst game in my PS1 collection. I've got a gameplay video of it somewhere. It's Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Battle 22. It's probably this sort of goes against the idea that 2D fighters are better than 3D fighters, because this is a 2D fighter. It's a shocker. I mean, whereas sort of the Dragon Ball Z anime is just purely just visceral and it's all about this dynamic and stuff like that. This is totally the opposite. This is just stunted and they all move around like they've got airborne rickets, But the best thing about it is the opening title sequence. Probably, I wouldn't even necessarily go as far as to say probably for Dragon Ball Z fans only. Oh, bollocks, I've just seen another crack in a case. Where is it? You can see it. It runs there. Driver and Driver 2. Yeah. I've played more of the original than the second one, but obviously I remember the first one definitely taps into the sort of. I'm sure about the time there was everyone was into the film Bullets, and this essentially tries to tap into that, that the buzz for the film. You're driving around in a Dodge Charger, but yeah, driving away from the police, and this one's got pedestrian, not pedestrian. I don't think you'd ever call him pedestrian. It's on foot sections, isn't it? Yeah, getting confused. I like the when you can look back at essentially make a film out of your gameplay. I like that. Yeah, drive away from the fuzz. Essentially, GTA without the on foot sections. Obviously, this is as off foot sections, but anyway, Drive and Driver 2. This one, especially, I can't remember this one actually, but this one especially, I remember just finding the actual the first section where you have to learn, you have to go through the sort of the training bit, and you have to pass the test. Really difficult. Going driving around the underground car park, just takes bloody ages. I'm not sure I ever did it. Well, obviously someone must have done it. I don't know if I ever did it for myself, or got someone else to do it, because I just, might have just got really frustrated and go, oh, fucking tell someone else to do it. Do it for me, please. No, I'm pretty certain I did do it just eventually, and it just drove me mad in the process. Next three: Duke Nukem Time to Kill, and Duke Nukem Land of the Babes. Favourite? Don't know. I do like Time to Kill, but it's a third person, but it was a bit clunky. Unlike Doom, you have to sort of aim up and down, which I always sort of find difficult. I mean, it shows how much these could do with dual analog controls, because essentially they're all just sort of single analog and sort of actual aiming up and down used with the shoulder buttons. But yeah, I think my preference would be Time to Kill. Not played so much of Land of the Babes, but it's generally how it works. I always sort of play the first two and then play a little bit less of the last one, or whichever one I play first. That makes no sense. And Land of the Babes, Duke Nukem Time to Kill, and Land of the Babes. Well, they're just like Doom, actually. Spent a lot of time getting shot at by pixels. Random pixels, and then they get closer and you realise they're pigs. You can't help but be amused by the sound bites in Duke Nukem games, can you? Finally, it's the last game, so we're nearly there. Dynasty Warriors. I know this definitely has got a case there. Dynasty Warriors, yeah. Unlike the other Dynasty Warriors games, this is a one-on-one fighter, and it's okay. It's okay. Can't say much more about it, really. I wonder if the people who sort of enjoyed this were slightly disappointed by the sequels, or it turned into a sort of a hack and slash game. But I don't know. But yeah, Dynasty Warriors. Does it show that I'm trying to talk really quickly because I'm already I'm approaching 23 minutes. I think it does, but yeah, that's the D's. Look out for the E's. They'll be along soon. Very soon, hopefully. Yeah. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.